Power 93.7 WBLK. I'm Yasmin Young. We are still going strong with our community forum. It was impromptu, put together very last minute, but we have got some great people, community leaders that are joining us to speak out, especially on the murder of George Floyd, the protest that happened here in Buffalo that started out peacefully and then escalated. I'm joined now by Kendra Brim. She's the National Urban League Young Professionals Programs Chair here in Buffalo. Welcome, Kendra.
Thank you for having me, Yasmin.
I appreciate you taking the time because this is ever so important, especially when it comes to our young people, because if you look at the protests that have been happening around the country, so many of these protests are being led by young people. Young people are tired. They're trying to channel their emotion. They're trying to channel their frustration. And we want them to be able to do it in a way that's going to be meaningful, that's really going to enact change. So I wanted to get you on because I know that you are one of the young leaders in our city. What can we do? What can young people do to really make change and stop this from continuing to happen to us?
Right. So I think that there's a few things that we have to make clear and understand. Peaceful protesting and petitioning our government is civic engagement. It is our right to petition and to protest. And the whole idea of civic engagement starts with voting. And a lot of times I sit on many boards and I talk to a lot of elected officials, and we talk about this all the time. How do we get young people to vote? And that's where I think the change has to happen. I know a lot of times when it comes to voting, we always do voter registration drives. But how about when we turn a certain age, or how about when we go and get our driver's license, that we automatically get registered to vote? That is the first step. The second step, again, we have all other things that come with voting, voter suppression and things like that. But I think that civic engagement begins and ends with voting. And that has been prevalent throughout our time. So I think that's the first thing. The second thing is that when we are protesting, we just have to understand that when we are, destroying our own communities, that is not necessarily the answer. I understand there's rage. I understand that, people are angry, and especially with this pandemic, it's coupled with a lot of just frustrations. But we have to understand that that is not necessarily the answer. Ways that we can affect change right now based off of the events that happened in Buffalo and across our country is donate to bailout funds. There's a lot of bailouts that needs to happen, so donate to bailout funds. And send supplies. PPE is very important right now, especially because we're among a pandemic. And then lastly, go to your neighborhoods and see who needs help cleaning up their businesses. We can't just put out tweets and messages on Facebook. We have to be the change that we want to see. So for the young people out there, I say that change happens now, because you don't want to be my age and then you don't want to be in your 50s and 60s still talking about the same thing. How do you affect systemic change and not necessarily the mindsets of people? Because I truly believe that sometimes the mindset of people is not going to change. We have to have change at the systemic level, and that begins with voting. And so I say all that to say is peaceful protesting is your right. No one can take that away from you. But when it turns violent, we have to take a step back to say, whoa, what are we doing here? And so I'm urging everyone to vote this year. We have several elections coming up, especially the presidential election. Vote. But also, too, when we have the elections for sheriffs, when we have elections for the school board, we have the elections for our county legislators, it's important that you vote, because change happens from the bottom up. And that's what I have to say about that. But again, we don't want George Floyd and everyone else's name to die in vain. And I really hope that everyone has the same energy starting today and going on through the rest of their lives.
Absolutely.
So this is not the end.
And how can someone who really wants to make that systematic change and systemic change get involved with the Buffalo Urban League and the young professionals in particular?
So for the Buffalo Urban League, we have a great president, Mark Glasgow. Please contact him through our social media channels, but also to visit bulypny.org. And then the same tagline through all social media channels, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
I appreciate you, Kendra. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Yasmin.